It's that time again, time for Prime Time Muscle. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Tim Wilkins, as always, joined by the amazing mega promoter and IFBB Pro Judge, Tarek El-Kindi.
Thank you, Tim.
And the one and only Hall of Fame bodybuilder, the real deal, Chris Cormier.
How you doing, brother?
Good, sir. How are you? Hey, let's bring it in. Let's bring it around, fellas.
Let's go.
How are we?
Let's go.
I'm doing great, excited, happy to see you. I'm actually happy to see Chris, too.
Thank you, man. Like the haircut. Good one.
Thank you.
Mustard tie.
It's nice. I got to separate you two. We're 29 seconds in. I'm already separating you two. Well, we have a lot of great topics on today's show. As always, we're going to start with one that's a really hot topic all over the interwebs, as you kids say. We're talking about the one and only Andrew Jacked, who, after all the hype, won that pro show and will now qualify for the Olympia. Guys, what do you think of that physique?
Well, Tim, right after he won the show, Chris Cormier and I got together, we looked at some pictures, and we really analyzed his physique. And there's no doubt he's impressive. He's very impressive. What I like about him is he's aesthetically pleasing, he's a tall competitor, and he has muscle. Now, putting all the excitement aside, there's still a few places where Andrew Jack can be even more formidable. If you look at his back, because he has large clavicle bones, we can add some width to the back. We can add a little bit more on the hamstrings as well. Now, one of the impressive things about him is he's got some deep separation on the chest, shoulders, and arms, which is typical of somebody that's been working out for literally decades, talking about Dexter Jackson in his later years. You get that muscle maturity. But that same separation is not seen on the legs. So I think that's going to come with the years as well. But he's a formidable competitor, and I think he can make an impact.
Chris?
Yes, Andrew Jacked is definitely jacked, and I think it's amazing that he only had a few shows under his belt to be where he is in the sport and to be looked at as someone that can actually win it all one day. So you only competing a handful of times. That's just unheard of in my time. But I would like to see more depth to the body, depth to the back. I would like to see like that thickness, And I would like to see clearer lines. Like just imagine his body, front and back, with all clear lines through it. Nothing blurry, none of that. You don't need to. I mean, just think about how much definition he has through here, like Terry said.
And he's in his 20s right now, fellas?
Yeah. So, but if you had the same here, if the back is looking like the front, then you have something amazing.
So now, of course, George Farah saying he's got him up there to shake up the top five, as one would think. Your coach is going to step by and say, hey, this is my guy. He's going to crush this year.
Yeah, that's diet, but you can't rush repetitions. You only have so many hours in a day and so many repetitions to do in a workout. So I got to live with that.
So now, we often say, you see these pictures of these guys standing next to their trainers, they go up with Big Steve and they pose, they look incredible under the perfect light, and then we always say, wait until they stand next to pros, and are they going to get buried? Is this a guy, he obviously won a pro show to qualify for the Olympia, how's he going to look up against the Olympia lineup?
Well, let's take in consideration that when he won his pro show, he was standing next to some pretty prominent bodybuilders, right? One of them has been to the Olympia many times, Steve Kuklo. And Steve was playing at home in Texas, and Andrew Jacked went in there and beat a lot of great guys, including Kamal was there. Kamal had just pressed against Akeem in Tampa, and he went in there and he won the show. Does he deserve the hype? Yes, absolutely. Like Chris said, you don't make it to the Mr. Olympia with so few competitions if you're not really, really good. Can he improve? Absolutely. Does he have a great coach behind him? Absolutely. George is going to keep him centered, and he's going to tell him, listen, you just won a pro show, but that doesn't mean when you hit that back double biceps against guys like Brandon Curry, Hadi Choopan, and Big Ramy, that you might not be missing some stuff that we need to work on. So all the praise, but we still have a little bit more work to do.
Well, the pictures always tell 1,000 words. Guys, let's go back. We got some great pictures. Chris, we'll start with you. And I believe we're starting off on the back and maybe the stuff you were talking about with thickness. Oh, we're front double by with your side.
On the left.
On the left over here. All right, let's go over here and check out his back. What's
Could you step down so you don't look taller than us?
Can you be
You're
quiet?
always trying to pretend you're taller than us.
Excuse me.
Okay,
No, but
you're
you can-
5'8".
so? What are we seeing here, fellas?
Well, from the back, if you can see, I mean, there's a lot of, like, I like to see a nice separational line straight down from the spine all the way up to the base of the back of the head. And then the lats look like two big hearts on either side of that split. That tells me the guy's can condition, he's got development, and the necessary look to be that champion. So I would like to see more definition, especially you hit the back double. It's all good though. Don't get me wrong. This guy is unbelievable, but I would just like to see that extra that we probably never seen before. Just because his height and all his attributes is just so amazing. I would just like to see the whole thing come together.
All right, judge's perspective, Your Honor. What do we need to improve, or where are we already way ahead?
So being tall, a lot of people think about being tall as a huge advantage, right? The reality is that we judge bodybuilding regardless of how tall you are, and sometimes being tall can be a disadvantage because that means you need to fill up more, right?
We've always looked at guys, I don't want to stop you, but 5'8", 5'9" seems to be that perfect range for guys in that 240 to 270 range.
Yeah.
And a guy 5'11" to 6'1", 6'2" in Gunterland has got to be 310 to 320 to look the same.
You have to fill up the frame. If you look at some of the shorter guys, they're more dense, and it takes the taller guys to fill up. Now, when I'm looking at this guy here, I'm seeing a tall guy, but I actually think he has the potential to have one of the best backs. And I'm going to give a historical reference here. Chris will remember the guy, Joe Stubbs. Remember Joe Stubbs?
Right.
Considered to be one of the best backs in the world, in the history. He actually had similar back structure from Andrew Jack, and that's the potential that he has. At this point, if he hits a back double biceps against Hadi Choopan, he's going to lose it. Hadi Choopan will have more separation, more density on that. Now, can he eventually beat Hadi on a back double biceps and some of those guys? Absolutely, he can.
Brandon's going to have him on the back pose for sure.
Well, let's take in consideration that everybody comes in great conditioning. Brandon will have more muscle there. Big Ramy will have more muscle. But I'm going to go as far as to say this guy has the potential to eventually have a Joe Stubbs kind of back and really dominate the field. Now, Chris is mentioning something about the legs. Chris, go ahead. Talk to me a little bit about his hamstrings.
Well, I would like to see here, you can see this is a different show. This is at the Arnold Classic. He was just turning pro here, so he had some more development here, but as you see here in Texas, I mean...
Trying to get the right angle here, Chris. Let me get out of your way here so you can point at his legs.
Yeah.
He's going to need more separation on the hamstrings. That's a fact.
Yeah, I would just like to see that. And then, it's just... I think it's just going to be some time. Like I say, if you get repetitions, it's hard you get the diet. Diet is fine, but getting those repetitions, those hard reps, it's going to come from training. It's going to come from posing over and over again, repetitiously, and I think that's what's going to make the biggest difference.
Well, one of those places that you talk about often in the hamstring is the side chest and that big sweep down below. And you see maybe this is a slightly older picture, but it's just not there yet. We're maybe a year or two off of having that good sweep, that big Ramy sweep that he's got.
I'm a fan of the sweep, but with definition.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see somebody like looking like a little pot-belly pig type style looking leg. I'm not really a fan of that look. But I like the definition you got. Just make that thing as deep as possible. That's going to come from deep tissue massage.
Yeah.
Tim, let me just add, the hanging hamstrings, it's vital for poses such as side triceps and side chest. That gives that density to the pose. Now, we talk about guys like Terrence Ruffin posing tall. This guy needs to sit on it. You know, you hear a lot of the coaches sit on it. So when he sits on it, he gives his physique a little bit more density rather than being so tall. So my advice to Andrew Jack is on these side poses, when he's next to Big Ramy, when he's next to Hadi and Brandon, those guys are going to be taller. If he sits on it a little bit, that's going to give him a little bit more width, and the hamstrings might the illusion of hanging a little bit more.
Get down there in that Sean Clarita range, somewhere around 5'2".
But
that'll be a challenge, Sean Clarita range.
But the thing is, as a master poser like myself, it's not just sitting on it. It's more like you're applying pressure through his feet and forward at the same time, lowering the leg. That's going to give you more. That's going to make the hamstring pop more.
And also pressing. One of the things that most competitors don't know is that some of the most experienced competitors, they're actually pressing the leg, which is behind, against the hamstrings to create more of a traction on the hamstrings, if I can say that.
My coach used to tell me all the time, press the legs together so they think you have one big leg, not two small legs. I had horrible legs, so that's why I do physique. So these are great poses. He does have some beautiful lines here. What are we looking at, Chris? And even back to the side chest. The striations, the upper chest, the delts, everything looks proportioned and good.
Yes, I mean, he does his style of front double. Me and myself, he's got long arms, so that's got to be in his mind a little bit of mental, like, okay, I don't have short, thick arms. But if you can rotate those knuckles, like they're
back,
just bring them in, so you're gonna be externally rotating that wrist, not the elbow, just the wrist itself.
And what's that going to do that peak?
That's going to give that peak a little bit more peak. That's what is going to make it come to the mountaintop. You can elongate it and bring it in just by rotating your wrist, but just be careful not bringing that the elbow forward, guys.
Very important stuff. Now, okay, here's another one where he does look like this is maybe the same suit as the other side. He looks like he put on some significant quad size since that Arnold appearance, some significant size in the triceps. The peak could still be a little peakier, but everything looks bigger in this package. He looks like he is a lot closer to Olympia ready right here than his Arnold appearance.
But also, everyone at home, when you hit a front double bicep, it's not just the biceps, it's also the triceps involved. You see he's got some good pressure in the tricep also, and that's where you get those extra little cuts that judges love to see, more detail.
Well, and we always talk about conditioning. Conditioning is just key. You've got some massive veins running through the middle of the lats there. You got to be fairly lean to be getting through veins like that.
Correct, yeah, and not only that, the vascularization is important, but it's the deep separation that comes from the elimination of body fat, that deep separation. Now, with that, you also have muscle maturity. You've been beating up those biceps, that chest for 10, 15 years. You have those natural cuts coming in. He has that on top, which I think it comes from his background in martial art. But he's going to have to add those deep separations on his legs, hamstrings, everywhere. Once he has that, I think this guy is really incredible. We're picking him apart here, but we're really saying Andrew Jack is amazing.
Terry, also, I mean, you're talking about a guy at his height. He has a waist of a light heavyweight. That's a light heavyweight's waist, if you would look at it.
That's a good point. We talk about controlling your abdominal section, having a small waist. Maybe that's his best attribute.
Well, guys, let's return here as we wrap this segment up. So the big question is, as we come into it, are we shaking up the top 10 or the top 5 this year, Chris?
I mean, I was super excited about this guy a lot of times, and I'm thinking, top 5. I mean, but, be realistic. I mean, it's very hard to compete 4 or 5 months later, compete again and peak again. So that's what's going to be a hard thing to do. So, I mean, I would be happy to see him in the top 10, for sure. And if he could push closer to 7, if you could, whatever, that'd be great.
That'd be a heck of a first showing.
You only have, like I said, a handful of shows that you've even done in your competitional career.
Pretty impressive. Top 10 or top 5?
I think Andrew Jack If he shows the way he showed in Texas, he might end up in the top 10. Everybody would love to see him in the top 5. I'm a traditionalist, conservative. The sport has had dynasties in bodybuilding. You don't see that many changes. We had Ronnie Coleman moving up real quick in '98. But I think the top 5 usually tends historically to be the same guys. You don't see dramatic changes.
Well, we'll see. All that'll be said this year in Las Vegas at the Zappos Theater, Planet Hollywood, December 15th to the 18th. You can find out with all of us, and we got more Primetime Muscle when we come back. More Primetime Muscle, and it's a good one. People love the classic physique category. We love it for the physiques that they're bringing, the different old, I don't want to say old-fashioned size, shape, and conditioning, but it's the classic era. And one of the things they love about that classic era is the classic era posing, and there are a few that are better than others. One of those guys, Rough Diesel, Terrence Ruffin.
Yes, Tim, the guy is a joy to watch. Let's just get down to business. He's the best poser in the IFBB Pro League right now. He's making history. He's becoming the Muhammad Makawi of our time. He takes time in preparing. And it's not only his posing routine, it's him posing on the comparisons. He's better than the other guys. He practiced more. And then there's this talk, the posing doesn't pay you money. I was just with Terrence in Europe where the promoters are paying him money to teach posing because he's the best at it. Man, he's a joy to watch. Everybody loves what he does. He's an artist. His background is an artist. He's a painter. So he has this kind of background. For him, it's more than just bodybuilding. He's a piece of art, and I praise the young man because he's on top of the world with that posing.
Now, Chris, classic era. You're part of that classic era that everybody idolizes, myself included. As a fan, I've looked up to you for a long time. Not just the physique, but the posing. What was it about that era that it is so nice to see back, and what do you think of T-Ruff?
Well, first of all, I think I'm very highly of Rough Diesel. Very impressive, improved a lot. You've seen the maturity coming through that he didn't have early on in his career. We came from posing as an art form. The practice that it goes into it, the many hours I spent.
That was a question I would ask.
The many hours and hours and hours I spent.
A lot of guys put it off to the end and go half an hour, hit a couple shots. How many hours did you guys pose over and over before a big show?
I don't know about you guys.
Well, you.
But me, I was under the tutelage of Robbie Robinson, the great Black Prince.
Yeah, Black Prince.
So he was not about playing around. So he would have me in there 45 minutes to an hour, like a few days a week. I got hooked up with Robbie as a young kid. I was 19, 20 years old, just like a straight soldier, willing to do whatever it takes. I don't care. I would be working at my job at the Wyndham I would get the call that I can get some posing lessons in LA. I live in Palm Springs. I would take the drive to Palm Springs.
2 hours.
2 hours. Easy, smiling, because I'm going to do what's going to make me better and what I want to do in life. And I didn't care about the job I was in. I wanted to be a bodybuilder. So I would go 2 hours there, get the posing lesson, 2 hours back, happy as hell. And when I came back home, after a while, my mother was like, you need to go where they are if you want to be that. So that's when it was the days to go to Venice. And I'm not saying now, but that was the days. So Terrence, he had an artistry background, all that stuff, great. He also got tutelage from Robbie Robinson.
Wow.
So I remember they were getting connected at that time, but I know what Robbie's about, and I know the connection he can give you, and I know Robbie's still a bodybuilder today as he was 40-some years ago.
I've seen the pictures. I don't know if you've seen the pictures online. The shape that he's holding, he's got to be late 60s, early 70s, or mid 70s?
No, he's probably about 77 or so.
Stunning.
But he was my training partner also for many years, and we ate together. We walked on the beach talking bodybuilding terms and everything together on a daily basis after we trained, and we spent a ton of time together. A lot of time, I got to give it up to him. He gave me a lot of his personal time, and I think he did a lot with Terrence, because Terrence then, his body started to change. He got more mature. And, Robbie was all about squeezing that muscle and all that stuff the whole time, because he came from that era, with Arthur Jones teaching the fine arts of bodybuilding. And I think that's a lot. He's under that same tree as I was, and I think that's paid dividends for Terrence.
Well, you guys both know this, and I talked to Sean Ray about this extensively. Posing brings out a quality of muscle that even lifting volume, weight just can't.
But everyone knows that, but they still don't put in the time. Like, I don't get bodybuilders today, why don't you put in the time, because it's only going to make you better? I don't know.
Well, I'm going to say that when you are on a comparison round, I can guarantee you that Terrence will probably be the last one to get tired. Terrence will be outposing most of the competitors in the first call out at the Classic Physique. Terrence will be the first one to hit the pose, possibly the last one to get out of the pose. And that's because he not only takes pride in the posing routine, but he also takes pride in the mandatories. And if you are a competitor and you're willing to compromise all that because you're not willing to practice your posing, there's nothing we judges can do. All we can see is somebody hitting a pose better than you and possibly moving up even though you have a physique that's more complete, because that guy just hit a better pose. He was able to hold the pose.
And at every level, you guys have to be ready for these judges to run you around and around and turn you, front double by, turn, and you see the guys that are fading, and it does make a difference. All right, guys, let's look at some of his poses. We've got some beautiful pictures up here, and it's not just the routine, which is always perfection, but the way that he hits these poses. What is it about some of these guys that makes him an art piece? Well,
let's first start with this pose. Do you really think this is a comfortable position that many people can do? No. I'd say 90% of the bodybuilders don't have the flexibility to bring their arm back, contract their triceps on the back end, and look at his abdominal section. So, everything just looks perfect here. And this is how you make your money. This is how promoters all over the world will call you and say, hey, I'm going to pay you money. I'm going to fly you to Europe, South America, because I want you teaching posing. I praise this young man. He's not only making money, but he's creating a legacy for himself.
All right, Chris, let's look at these. And not just to mention the Best Poser Award has got to be, that's a good chunk of change at every show now.
Yes, I want to go back to this.
You come right around.
Also, because Terry made a good reference to all the different poses, muscles that he's connected with. Also, his lower lat insertions, they're connected and contracted. He's also going for that little forearm is getting contracted. Everything in his whole body is contracted at one time, but effortless. I mean, you're not making faces, everything. The whole body is tense, but the face is nice and controlled. When you come to the back double bicep, you see the glute tie-in, the hamstring definition, everything's in place, hiding. And I want to say also, hiding the thumbs, and you don't want nothing hanging down to where judges are going to catch a judge's eye that's going to take away from your physique. So all this stuff he takes into consideration, contorting his body to the different ways to accentuate the different muscle groups. So a lot of people don't connect all over their body at one time. Like you want to have all the muscles connected and contracted, and that's how you're going to bring out the best.
And the key is to start that from the ground and take it to the top. So he's obviously doing that from the calves to the quads. Talk to us, okay, you talked to us about the twist to get into that position, which most bodybuilders don't. Hip flexors, obliques, all those things that are loosened up and practiced.
Tim, sorry to interrupt, Chris. Move out of the way. This guy has a small waist, but it's not enough. He's twisting to make his waist even smaller. So that's great posing. It's not enough to have a small waist. It's not enough to be Chris Cormier and Flex Wheeler. You still have to pose to make your waist smaller. And if you look at all these poses, he is twisting to make his physique even more aesthetically pleasing. This guy is the new real deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, so when he says this about the waist, a lot of times people hit a frontal bicep and just look like a leaning tower. Like, you got to accentuate your body, accentuate the waist and the hips, and picking up the sartorius muscles. All these things make this body way more pleasing in the definition. Look at this.
I know where your mind is going, Terry.
I just love that little twist.
He still got it.
I mean, you still have it. Like 1996, Las Vegas, right before he went on stage, he was doing that twist.
You never lose it, baby.
Yeah.
So, also, this right here is a transition from going into a pose. This is going to be a front of a bicep, but I always like to say a pose before the pose is always going to give you up points with the judging.
Now, guys, we do this a lot when we're doing the pay-per-views and the streams, and even as fans, we're watching somebody going, oh, that was a Labrada, that was a Gaspari, that's a Bob Paris, that's a Barry DeMay. Have we gotten to a point where he has just captured these, and these are now Terrence Ruffin poses?
Tim, that's a great point, because he does contort his body in ways that no one else is doing. And I think that is a big plus for him. And kudos to him, man. Like, I know he put in the work. And I know, like I said, I know he got a lot of stuff from Robbie Robertson, but, with his own twist on it. I like the way he's utilizing the hands, all the way to the fingers, all the way to the toes. Everything's in place right. Hiding the thumbs in this pose. Some people might have the thumbs sticking down because they don't understand. You got to hide your thumbs inside your fist.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you got to remember that as you're doing classic physique. It's not like open, where so many times in open now, it's a wrestling match. It's hit a pose, it's Hulk Hogan stuff. You're an art piece in classic. It's the way that we were meant to display the muscles going back 60s, 70s, 80s, into the 90s. And this is just stunning. It's just stunning what he's done and the different ways that he's accentuated all the muscles.
Yeah, even you want your knees slightly bent like that. Everything like that is just, I think that's awesome. I always look for his poses, and he's getting better and better each year still.
We will be referencing Terrence Ruffin as one of the greatest posers of all times. We will be mentioning his name along Mohamed Makawi, Flex Wheeler, Chris Cormier. He will join them in history. And in 20 years from now, some guys are going to be talking about Terrence Ruffin as one of the best, if not the best. He's building his legacy. And Tim, every bodybuilder, every classic physique guy, women's physique competitor, female bodybuilder, they have this opportunity. They have the opportunity to make history like Terrence is making it. His name will be on the history books, and I advise every bodybuilder, if you want to be on the history books, take the time and become an artist like Terrence Ruffin.
Tarek, this guy, I'm telling you now, Terrence Ruffin has a cachet to be one of the next classic Mr. Olympia champions.
I saw him in Europe. He's dense. He's got the posing. Good-looking guy. The sky's the limit.
And a great ambassador to the sport. We've got more great ambassadors and much more great talk on our next segment when we come back on Primetime Muscle.
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
All right, we're back, and we're talking about a very interesting topic. The Arnold Classic has dropped a few divisions: men's 212, women's bodybuilding, figure, and women's physique. But one physique competitor has stepped up and said, hey, if it's money that's a problem, you're short of that, even though you're one of the highest grossing actors of all time. I got $20,000, and I'll cover the winnings for the entire division. That person is Sarah Villegas. And guys, what do you think of Sarah stepping up to the plate and saying, I got this?
I think it's awesome. I think it's incredible. I think it's very noble of her and her husband. They love the sport so much. They have a huge gym in Texas that I had a chance to visit. We got lost in it because it's that big. Ooh. And it's just a testament of the champion that she is. She wants to. She even put up money for the
show in Texas.
Yeah, for the show in Texas, and they're just not shy to put their money where their mouth is. And she's a hard worker, and she wants to see the best up there. And she's actually fighting for the other competitors in her own division. So I love it.
You know, that was an interesting point, Derek. People were saying, well, you know, if you're going to put up money, you might win anyway as Miss Olympia for the third time. Big deal. But she's covering the entire division. So that's pretty impressive. Well,
Tim, let's look at her competitive history. She was able to dethrone, a very, very formidable competitor, Shanique Grant. And it was a controversial decision. Some people thought Shanique should have won. Some people thought, Sarah should have won. It ended up being a one-point decision. Both of them are phenomenal competitors. And right after, Shanique said, I might not be competing anymore. And Sarah Villegas said, I'm willing to put money to have you come back on stage and challenge me again. And I thought that was as good as it gets. I mean, the UFC, the NFL, they don't have that kind of behavior, right?
That's right.
And everybody in the industry just had that quiet moment like, wow, this woman means business. She's not afraid of anybody. And if there's any controversy, she's willing to put money and bring that controversy back on stage. A few years go by, or maybe a year go by, and she puts money on a show where she's not competing, right? And we talk about being a great representative of the sport, and I think right now Sarah Villegas is the best representative of the sport. She's not doing it for her category, she's not doing it only for herself, but she's doing for other athletes. And I admire her, and I'm telling you right now, Sarah Villegas, once she retires, and I know she might be competing for a long time, but I think she's going to be one of the leaders in our bodybuilding industry.
Now, Chris, we give you a hard time about the fact that you're our style icon. You're our Louis Vuitton Don. You dropped some coin on some clothes. Yes. We see the pictures of Sarah flying home in the private jet after winning the Olympia. She's a boss. But to throw the money around and say, I support what I do in my sport and my division, that's a cool move.
Oh, most definitely. It's very commendable on her part. Like I said, her and her husband, they got it going on over there in Texas. Like I said, I had a nice visit with them, and they have a great operation for fitness. And it's not, also lifestyle people also, that's probably like the corporate is probably their target. But as you can see, they put in the work and they know how to diet, they know how to come prepared. And she's a great champion. She's going to go down as one of the most legendary women of the sport, in my opinion.
Now, okay, so you talk about Shanique Grant, but Natalia always big competition for her this year at the Olympia. The prize money is always growing. Jake Wood and his team are always making the show better for all classes, divisions, across the board. These two are duking it out. How do you think it's going to shake out? Is she going to defend that title this year, or is it going to be a toss-up?
It's going to be very close, as it has been in the past. Here's the deal. Natalia Coelho won the New York Pro this year, and it was her best performance. One of the things the judges had mentioned about Natalia that Sarah Villegas had an advantage was a little bit more muscular development on the quads and the hamstrings. And her performance at the New York Pro was her best yet, and she showed that development on the legs. She ended up doing more shows and winning, but we could see that her body was getting a little tired. And in my opinion, if she's able to duplicate the effort from the New York Pro, it will be a battle for the ages. Now, talking about another great representative, they might just be all of them in the women's physique division, because Natalia Coelho is involved with everything in the sport. She is the first one to be part of lives. She does the women's seminar. She's present at every single event supporting the sport. She's not only a leader in the women's physique, but she's a leader for women in the sport, just like Sarah Villegas. So I commend these two women, and I know for a fact, I've seen it personally, women that take accountability for what they're doing at the moment they're competing, when everybody's giving them praise, and say, hey, this is not only about me, but it's about a bigger thing. They'll be leaders in our sport.
It is such a nice middle ground to have that division between figure and women's bodybuilding, to strike that balance with muscularity, conditioning. It's sad, though, to see such a major show without figure, without women's physique, and without women's bodybuilding. These are crucial parts of women's sports, where so many women are gravitating towards one aspect that appeals to them, one aspect that they really connect with. And I think it's unfortunate. Still, I'm hoping they reconsider. They said it's because the depth of field of competitors isn't big enough and strong enough. It's invitation only. How can it not be? You're choosing the competitors.
Tim, as a promoter myself, I like to also look at the perspective of the promoter and say, okay, are we losing money here? Are we getting money there? Are we getting sponsors? What is the timing of the show? All that comes into play. So I also like to give the opportunity for, everybody to think about another perspective. But in the end of the day, you got to look at the history of bodybuilding. And the Mr. Olympia is the event that has happened since 1965. When the pandemic happened and many people could have cut cost, the Mr. Olympia happened and it had more prize money. It doesn't even cross anybody's mind that the Mr. Olympia would eliminate one category, right? And that is why the Mr. Olympia is the Super Bowl of the Super Bowls.
It actually brought women's bodybuilding back to the main stage.
If I was on a table with all the guys involved in the Arnold, say, listen, this is the second most prestigious event. And if you miss one year, if you miss one category, you start diminishing a little bit of the prestige. Shows like Tampa Pro, shows like the New York Pro that present all categories, they get such prestige. But I also would like to, just give them a little bit of credit. Maybe it's just 1 year and they'll all be back next year, and it will be just a year where they wanted to make some adjustments.
Now, you won the Arnold Classic. Did you?
No.
You did not. But how?
That was a good one, Tim. That was excellent. I love that one. He did not win the Arnold.
To be fair to Tim.
He did not win the Arnold.
To be fair to Tim.
Can we repeat that one more time?
To be fair to Tim.
It was close, Chris. It was close.
Tarek.
Didn't have calves.
With all due respect to the judging, they got it wrong.
Oh, sure, Chris. That's fine.
He
Chris.
had it right.
Yeah,
they got it wrong.
Sure, Chris.
So, all due respect.
So,
no problem. He almost won, Tim. That's
I just haven't found a judge yet to this day that say I didn't win.
Yeah, sure, Chris.
So how important was that show to you in your time on stage as a competitor? It's the you talk about shows with prestige. It's up there with the Olympia some years, and for guys, it's a precursor to winning. For some of the competitors in every division, it's a precursor to this is how my Olympia is going to go.
That show meant the world to me to win it. I actually tried 10 times to win it. I was second 6 years in a row. And,
Come on, Tarek.
He's the Buffalo Bills of bodybuilding. You should buy him a Buffalo Bills jersey and have him go to the Arnold with a Buffalo Bills jersey.
That's a good one. That is very good. I like that, Tarek. Like the spunk. But yes, Tim was right. I did win the show, and I'm just waiting for my trophy. I'm sure it's going to be delivered at any time.
Maybe they'll deliver your GMC Yukon or your Cadillac Escalade with it, and the
that'd be
$250,000 prize
awesome.
money that they give on that one.
Awesome.
It is a very valuable part, and I really commend Sarah, like you guys have both said, for stepping up to the plate, delivering for her fellow competitors, and supporting that division and saying, this is I want to make sure this has legs, and making sure that everybody's taken care of. If they're going to spend all that time, energy, devote their lives to bringing their best to a stage, they're going home with a nice check.
Tim, you can be a great champion. You can be a great champion, and that's very hard. But being a somebody that has a legacy, that leaves a legacy, is even harder. And what Sarah Villegas is doing, she's making her legacy unforgettable. You know, like we were talking about Terrence. Terrence is the best poser of our times. Nobody can take away that. Muhammad Makawi. You know, Chris Cormier, one of the greatest posers of all time.
6 times second place at the Arnold Classic.
So, Sarah Villegas is making her legacy. And it's more than just winning on stage. She's an example for people like myself that have a daughter, right? Hey, it's not only about you winning on stage, but what can you do for the people that are on stage with you? And Sarah Villegas is a great example.
Well, there are lots more legacies to be built in the greatest bodybuilding show. It is our world championship by far. You don't dare want to miss it. Legends are built right there on that stage as they duke it out. The expo is getting huge, and of course, you can find out all the information on that at MrOlympia.com. The show date's December 15th to the 18th. We hope you're there to join us. You know it's always electric in that city when that show's going on.
Most definitely. I can't wait to get there.
And you've always got a line around you looking for autographs.
For sure.
At the club. At the club, he's got a line. If you go to Encore Beach Club, he's got a line there. You know.
We all have our places where we're superstars. All right. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends. Follow us on Instagram, and of course, send comments about how best to keep these two separated. As always, we thank you. I'm Tim Wilkins. Thanks for joining us on Primetime Muscle. For The Real Deal, Chris Cormier and Tara Kilgindi, we'll see you next time.